Hi, I'm Francina,
I'm Jackie.
and welcome to the Rest, Love, and Justice podcast.
This podcast is an inquiry into whether rest and love and justice can produce transformative social change. The dominant narrative is this overwork and this glorification of it, especially in the justice space. And here, we're going to question that notion.
Come sit with us as we meet our collective humanity and share stories around rest, love, and justice. It is our hope to create a shift that enables us to recognize that racial justice work is a human issue. It affects us all. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Rest, Love, and Justice podcast. I am your host, Francina, with my amazing co-host,
Jackie Gao. Nice to see you all.
And today we're doing a vibe out where we're going to just talk about a topic that came up in conversation for us. And we just wanted to go a little deeper with it. And today our topic of conversation is the term itself, rest, and how there is a resistance, if you will, to conversations around rest. Even people in my circle looking at exhaustion as a badge of honor, but never talking about the remedy to that exhaustion. So yeah, we're just going to go a little deeper with that and talking about ways that we can show up in our communities, talking about not only our need for rest, but being able to call that out in the people that we love and not going beyond just saying, you look tired, you need to rest. But like, how can we be a part of community to support someone else's rest?
Yeah.
You ready, Jackie?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. I have found that so many people are so much more eager to talk about how busy and exhausted they are than they are to talk about their need for rest. And I feel like in some ways there is a stigma that is connected to laziness or non-productivity that keeps people from talking about, I need to rest, or this weekend, I need to prioritize rest. There is this priority to be productive even on the days that we're supposed to be off. So what do you think about that, Jack?
I know if you ask my partner, he would say I am totally guilty of that. Like, what are you doing over the weekend? Asking even leading questions, like someone has to do a lot rather than just be or rest. I know I think this happened a few weeks ago. I overslept on a nap before getting on our call, and I didn't want to tell you. Like, even that's the whole point of this podcast. But I was like, oh, I'm gonna look like I don't care about this work or I'm lazy. So even noticing like how often, even though we're exploring this conversation around rest, how I don't often want to say that I feel restful, or I know like on the other side of things too, like don't want to say when I need more rest or I need support too. So I think the whole topic of rest can be really, really taboo. And yeah, that maybe even saying no. I know we've talked a lot about this, like how to say no to certain activities that aren't restful for ourselves and our community. And what happens when we do that? How our community responds to that? What resistance come up, even ourselves, and then with others too. So I like how we're inviting more conversation around the topic of rest because it does feel taboo. In the hopes that we can have more conversations about how to access rest a little bit more every day and every week.
And really, I feel like the biggest shift, the biggest win, or the marker of success for me would be that we normalize resting. That we're not normalizing asking, what are you doing this weekend? Because we've got to be doing something, right? But, that maybe people would even ask the question, how are you resting this weekend? Or what's your rest plan for this weekend, right? Like, and I will say too, like this came up for me actually this week, where we had invited a good friend of mine to be on the podcast. And I've been moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, having a small business and taking care of kids and all the things, and tracking even as I share that, like, oh my gosh, I am literally spilling out my resume of busyness, right? And in the 11th hour, probably a couple of days before the podcast, she's like, I don't think I can do this. I'm not in a good space to do this. And the first thought that came into my mind was this urgency of like, what? Why can't she just push herself to go? It's just a recording. And it immediately made me stop and think about, wow, she is advocating for herself, that this is what she needs. And what if we all showed up in our lives, in the spaces of relationships with neighbors and friends and family, and could say no? And then it brought up the conversation with you, Jackie, that, what are some ways that we can actually support people's rest? And that's a notion that most people don't even think about, that I can contribute to another person's rest, because most people are just so tired in their lives that they're not resting. So how can they contribute to another person's rest? And so I'm bringing us all the way back to why we started this podcast. If you are well rested, right, that allows you to be a conduit for rest for another person. The reason why we can't see ourselves contributing to other people's rest is that we are not contributing to our own rest. So let's just go through a couple things, or a list of some ways that can be contributions to rest. And we welcome conversation, as always, of other ways that you all, our community, can see that we can contribute, that you can contribute to people's rest.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and so as you said, step one, ensuring we're rested. And we know rest is expensive. We've talked about that in past podcasts, but whatever the rest you can do, the nanosecond, the 5 second, the 3 minutes, whatever it is, whatever the practice is for you, we all start there, right? And I know that's my job. My first job is to do that even before going out and trying to support others. I loved what we have chatted about before, Francina, like an invitation to go for a walk. If you're in person, or actually virtually, I do this often with friends, like get on a headset and go for a walk, in person or virtually with a friend. That can be really restful, good for the body and for the mind, and doesn't cost anything.
Yeah. I love the idea of offering a friend a meal, whether you purchase them dinner or you bring them a meal that you have. If you have the capacity to prepare a meal, you bring them a meal, because that is contributing to something that maybe they don't need to do anymore for that day. Another way that I found really, I've had a couple friends that just say, hey, bring your kids over and then you can go take a nap. Or they come to my house and watch my kids so that I can take a nap. These are all ideas and things that that are within our reach to contribute to another person's rest.
And I think it touches on a topic that I know is very challenging for me, is to receive.
Damn.
So if the invitation is there for someone to help support me, how can I fully receive that? And say, no, it's fine, or no, I don't have, my problems aren't so big, or, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about rest. And if I am in need of rest in that moment and someone can offer that, how can I open up to that? And then be in conversation. We can workshop it together too. Like, maybe, no, I don't need a meal, but I need this. And workshop it as a community. Cause I just love that, with some of my circles that I roll in, there's someone who loves to pick people up from the airport, and that is an amazing gift. And there's people that do not do that. You wouldn't even want this person to pick you up from the airport because they would be late and wouldn't text you back, and it wouldn't be good. So don't offer the gift that's not your unique gift. I have one dear friend who is an organizer and doer. And so she has come over and supported kind of just a spring cleaning. And that's her gift. And it's easy. She's like, I'm in flow state all the time when I'm offering this gift. So whatever is your unique gift, that is maybe what you can offer to someone else that is able, allowing them to rest. But definitely don't, and I'm taking this advice for sure, don't offer that thing that is not my thing, because not going to work, and it's going to exhaust the whole community. So
Yeah.
I love being in
And
conversation with people about that.
I love that we're inviting people to lean into their gifts. And you can't know your gifts if you're not connected to yourself. And you can't connect with yourself unless you slow down and you're still enough to hear who you are. Um, and that all trickles back down to being rested to be able to access all those things. Like all of it is connected, right? When we are operating in our gift space, we're operating in our genius. And I find a lot of times when we're in our genius, and we're in that flow state, we are not, it doesn't cost us as much energy as when we are not in our genius. So
Yeah.
offering your gifts to people allows them to receive your genius, but also it allows you to contribute to another person's rest in a way that isn't taxing as much for you as it would if you were doing something that isn't your gift.
Yeah. I love this.
Yeah. And I think ultimate, I think one of the ultimate
Tell us. Tell us.
is the power to say no. The power to say no. And we hear it all the time, right? No is a complete sentence. And you exercise your boundaries, blah, blah, blah. But somehow we get into the space where we feel like we're obligated to say yes. Like, and I feel this all the time. Like, I got 5 kids, and my kids are very active at school, and they do a lot of like music and choir and strings and band. And I feel guilty, like I should be volunteering for every single one of those things. And I can't. I just don't have the bandwidth for it.
Pun intended.
And there are other. Yes, that's true. Um, and my no is a complete sentence. Like, we need you to volunteer. Sometimes I can't, and other times I can't. And that does not mean that I never, but it does mean that I can say no. And maybe for some of you guys listening today, you're tracking. There's something that you said yes to that really needed to be a no. And trust me, a domino effect happens when you empower yourself to go and say no, because then it gives other people permission to also say no to the things that they're saying yes to that they shouldn't be. And if we created a culture where it's safe for people to express their needs and their no's, right? That creates a culture that's real, that's authentic, and we're not having exhausted people showing up beyond their capacity when really they need to be resting.
Yeah. Yeah, I have so many things coming through. I mean, I used to say no to things and say because I had something else going on. But now it's like, no, I don't need to have that. Doesn't need to be the reason why I say no. Is because I'm already committed to something else. It can just be for spaciousness.
Yes.
And oftentimes, if I have a spacious schedule, then I can rest more. And then also, if I'm more rested, then I'm able to offer support to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have it figured out, like, at all.
None of us do.
But I like having this conversation and even tracking the evolution of that in my own life. Having to feel like I needed an excuse to say no when really the excuse is just rest. And I think that brings us back to the beginning of this podcast too. Just taking any stigma around rest out of the culture as much as we can.
Right. We get to define what this means to us. We get to give meaning to this life giving. It's life giving to rest. It's life giving to rest. And maybe that's even where we need to just end. It is life giving to end. And if you're giving yourself life, you're taking the time to rest and restore your body.
Yeah.
All right. That feels complete to me.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you, Francina.
Thank you, Jackie. And that's a wrap on another Vibe Out. We like to keep them short and sweet. So thank you for joining us. And if you have comments, if you have questions, please feel free to email us or join us on our social media page at Rest, Love, and Justice Podcast. When we share this episode, give us your take and your thoughts.
And that is our show for this week. This episode was produced by The City Music. As for me, I'm Jackie Gao, and thanks to my co-host, Francina Call.
Will you move through this week embodying rest, love, and justice in ways that are meaningful to you and your community? Thanks for joining us today. Peace and love.